All right, guys, we're back. Brand new Take Aim. Excited to get this show out after a little extended break, but excited to have Doug on from the Horny Buck Seed Company. Doug's a wealth of knowledge and has a lot to talk about. We'll probably have to have Doug back on the show. Just so much to cover with Doug. Couldn't fit it all in one show, but we're going to hook back up here shortly and talk about food plots again with hunting season approaching now. But good show. Doug knows a lot. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, guys, welcome to brand new Take Aim podcast, and excited to have one of the biggest names in the food plot industry and seed industry on the show with us today from Horny Buck Seed, Doug Kostreva. How you doing, Doug?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
Not a problem, man. Super excited to talk to you and just kind of get some background on. I know a lot of people have heard, obviously, of Horny Buck Seed, and just kind of get the ins and outs of how you guys got started, and even letting everybody know what you guys offer, even though I know a lot of what you offer, but there's so much more to you yourself, Doug, and what you do, and your knowledge base is just huge. So I was super excited to have you on the show today.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a long story, but I'll make it as short as I can because I don't want to bore anybody. But I've been putting in food plots since the 80s. I'm a third-generation farmer. Live on the same farm that my grandparents built back in 1917. I have a wonderful wife and two lovely kids who are 11 and 13 now. But I'm big into, when I got started into this, I didn't know which direction I was going to go into, but I have a big passion for growing deer. It wasn't about just, attracting deer. It was about growing deer. And the name of the company, I got to thank my good, lovely wife for naming it because she's the one who did name the company, so people can't throw me under the bus. But it had to go with her hunting type because she loved to hunt, and every time she see a deer with antlers, she called it a horny buck. Well, everybody that knows antlers, you can call them antlers, but most guys are like, look at the horns or look at the rack on that. And I said, I would never call it horny buck. I said, people will take it the wrong way. She said, but that's up to them. She said, it's a play on words. She says, you know where I know where it goes. And I said, well, I know where you know where it goes. So we created our logo, which is, my brother drew it up, and I'm an old-time Bugs Bunny, Warner Brothers type of person, because that kind of ages or dates me, so to speak. But he drew up our Horny the Buck, is what we call him, and he is our mascot, no different than Wile E. Coyote or Roadrunner or Bugs Bunny or whatever, Foghorn Leghorn, whatever you want to say. So Horny the Buck was created. He's a 14-point buck. He's a cartoon character who's a very happy deer, no different than us as a family because we're a bunch of nut jobs as ourselves. But with that all being said, that's how we basically got started, and it all started through educating people on how to grow plots. And then once you learn about protein values and what deer eat, what their nutritional values are, it's about getting them through the winter. It's about getting them nutritionally fed. It's about keeping deer on your property. It's all about all of the above versus, the baiting aspect of it. I'm big into the mineral aspect of it. I work with quite a few deer farms, and deer farms are unique in their own. Some people don't like them. Some people love them. I'm not here to judge. It's a whitetail. It's a whitetail. I don't care if it's in a 500-acre pen or if it's out on 500 acres that's free range. It doesn't matter to me. It's still a whitetail. But the only benefit about having a deer farm and working with deer farm and some of the biologists that I've met along the way who have helped me along the way to understand about the anatomy and all of these things, I took all of that and I basically created our plants and our programs and our blends and our minerals and everything that we have all based around the nutrition of a deer, because antlers come from nutrition, whether it comes from a doe and a fawn or whether it comes from a deer out in the wild. The more nutritional value and the less stress that deer is under, the bigger it's going to get. So the moral of the story is that is what I'm into. We're not your normal seed company. From one aspect, I'm very picky on what we put in our bags. I only use top-grade seeds. I'm very, very anal about that, and that's just who I am. It costs us a little bit more to produce our product, but then again, I know on the flip side, you're not getting junk in the bag or chaff or weed seeds or 5-year-old seed or 3-year-old seed or 2-year-old seed. Everything we have is 100% fresh, and our rate of germ and our rate of growth is unbelievable, and I think that's kind of how it's growing for us as a seed company, no pun intended. It's because of customers who are noticing a difference, because to me, the seed is the cheapest part of your plot, even though people don't realize that, but it really is. Because if you go into the effect of, well, you know, well, listen, I got to buy land, or I got to rent land, or I got to buy equipment, or I got to rent equipment, or I got to put fertilizer, or all of the above, weed killer, the whole 9 yards, you got all of that money into doing a plot, and you want to save $15-20 by buying some cheaper seed or going to a feed mill and blending our own. And I'm not throwing any feed mills under the bus, because a lot of feed mills have great seed. There's a lot of companies out there that have great seed. But as a seed company owner, I learned a lot about, I call it the game, the seed game. It is pretty appalling. It really is to me, because I can sleep at night. I don't know how some of these people really do, because it all comes down to the bottom dollar on making money. And I never started this business to become a millionaire. I never did. I started this business because I have a passion, and I can see that it's paying off as people are finding us on their own, and they're doing their own research, and it's word of mouth is what's selling our seed more so than social media or TV or anything. It's all, I plant this, I plant this, I plant this, I plant this, and they're comparing pictures. So that's kind of the short version of it. Believe it or not, Brandon, there's a longer version, but I'm just going to stick out.
No, that's fine, Doug. But let's start with kind of, I don't think you mentioned, but you're based in Wisconsin. But let's start with, you know, you said you started doing some of these plots way back in the 80s. So tell me a little bit of what you've seen from how seed has changed to the plots, the type of seed from the 80s to now, and how that trend has developed to where it is today.
Well, you know, yeah, we are based out of Wisconsin. I'm 50 miles north of Green Bay, actually. And, you know, I think a lot of years ago, there was no such thing as really food plotting. You know, in fact, deer, back when I was a kid, a lot of times deer were a nuisance. You didn't like them because, you know, as a farmer, you were giving up your corn, or you were giving, you know, they were eating their alfalfa, and then it got into the soybeans, and they were eating the soybeans. But, you know, I think hunting has taken a whole different twist now, where people are enthused and they love watching deer. But it goes back down to, you know, deer have not changed, you know, as far as the deer themselves. I mean, you know, deer back in the 60s, you know, and there was giant deer back in the 60s, you know, versus, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s. But deer today seem to me have taken on a whole different, I don't want to say genetics, because it's still the same genetics. We're able to release the genetics more so. So back to health, you know, and I always refer this, and I know this might be a bad analogy, but this is the best analogy I can use. It's kind of like a bodybuilder. Deer, and I'm using it in this term, bodybuilders build muscle mass, and they lose weight from what they really intake. And deer are no different. It all comes down to proteins, and how are they able to absorb the proteins, and stress levels. So, you know, it all comes back down to, it's a whole different world than it was back then. Because back then, you know, people were planting clovers. I mean, clovers were huge. And then all of a sudden, you know, this all goes back down to Canada with canola, and canola is a form of rape, and, you know, it's a brassica, and when it freezes, it gets higher in sugars, and, you know, and in moderation, it would help the deer get put on fat. You know, it's about deer keeping health through the winter, because the winter's a rule of thumb what is the hardest on a deer. So it's all about keeping your deer healthy and in good shape through the winter, not too fat, mind you, for fawning season, but giving them the right amount of carbs with the right amount of proteins so that they can make it through the winter, and they can strive in the springtime and then get into the summer. So back to the blends part of it, kind of what, you know, what you asked about, you know, how things have changed.
Right.
Our blends are different in a couple aspects. A lot of guys say, well, they're so busy. Well, they are busy, but I am building, I consider it, in my opinion, I'm building restaurants. And I'm not just building, you know, a Kentucky Fried Chicken and a McDonald's. I am building, a steakhouse. I am building, a Chinese restaurant. Because deer are a mammal. We are mammals. Deer are probably one of the laziest mammals out there, believe it or not. And you know what? All they really care about is eating, drinking, predators, bedding, and staying away from, out of sight, out of mind, and staying healthy. That's all they care about. So
right.
if you can provide, if you can provide a piece, if you can provide a piece for the deer that you stay out of their house, because I call their sanctuary their home, you stay out of their home and you leave them live there, and you provide them with a mineral site, a water site, a food site, and a bedding area, them deer ain't going to leave. They're not going to leave because they don't have no interest like us as humans where, hey, let's go to town and catch a movie. They don't care. They just care about surviving. So the only way you can get them surviving is keep them on your property, and that's why our blends are a little bit more complicated, because there's clover, there's alfalfas, there's chicories, there's different types of brassicas, a whole bunch of different forms of brassicas. There might be winter rye, there might be peas, there might be beans. It all depends on your deer, but if you got groceries, it's no different than us. When we get up in the morning, some mornings or some days, if you are craving something, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's apple juice. I don't care if it's something salty. I don't care if it's something sweet. I don't care if it's orange. I don't care what it is. If you're craving it, it's because you're lacking something. Deer are the same way. They need to metabolize and keep their body as a full running machine. So in other words, some days, and I watch this on deer farms. That's why I like deer farms, is you can go to a deer farm, you can let the deer in a pen, and you can watch what they eat. So, as far as grazing, some days they might only want to eat alfalfa. Some days they might only want to eat clover. Some days they'll eat brassica and clover. It depends on their metabolism and what they're craving. But it's back down to growing groceries on your property for the deer to stay. And when I say groceries, that's my big word that I use all the time. Groceries, groceries, groceries. You can never have enough groceries. I would rather let groceries go to waste than to run out. The problem that I have with some customers is people don't understand when you start putting in food plotting, that old adage, if you build it, they will come. So deer attract deer, and people don't get that. So you cannot take and pick a half-acre plot on your property and expect to hold 40 deer on it. It will not happen. Average deer during the summer will eat 3 to 6 pounds of green matter per day. In the fall time, when they know they got to put their feed bag on and they got to put their weight on, they'll eat as much as 15 to 20 pounds per day, per deer. So, man living, you better have a doggone lot of groceries to feed them. So, when this is the biggest thing that I run to with customers, and I think they're learning now, and I got so many success stories, which makes me very proud, honestly, Brandon. But it's about, guys are like, you know what, I started out, Doug, I put a plot in, and I only had 6 deer on camera, Now, 2 to 3 years later, I got as many as 21 in one picture. See, this is where you can create a problem, because deer follow deer. They do. And, if a deer keeps, and they smell, they work off of their senses, and you will attract deer from the neighbors. You will attract deer, especially, the hardest part that I have is when you're surrounded by big woods, not a lot of, agriculture. Man living, they will mow them off in a heartbeat, and then you're stuck with nothing. So when I tell people, when you're setting up a property, think outside the box, because you can never have too much groceries. And back to one of the things in our blends is, I'm a firm believer in having clover and alfalfa or chicory, either one of those three, that are going to come back first thing in spring. Even winter rye is going to come back first thing in spring. That's what I call the deal maker on health of your deer. And the reason
now, are
why
you saying this, Doug, like for a general area, like being like a northern big timber area, or are you just saying?
I don't care where. I don't care where you do this. You got to think outside the box. And here's what I'm talking about outside the box. I get this all the time when I do my seminars, and people get up, and I ask people, all right, what are you surrounded? Well, I'm surrounded by agriculture, so I don't need anything in the spring. BS. And I explain to them why. Deer are browsers. I understand that. But in the springtime, when we're coming off of, a winter, when things start to green up, it takes a while for them to green up. And then and then in the same aspect, you got to think, well, I got farmers that plant beans, and I got farmers that plant corn. Well, corn, you might as well wipe that out because that doesn't matter. Okay, so let's just throw that on the side. So now I go, well, I got farmers that put in beans for me. All right, perfect world. Let's say you get them in by April 15th. Let's just say hypothetically, which it normally never does, but let's just say April 15th. It takes 30 days to get a decent emerge with a decent plant that's going to be 3 to 4 inches. Okay, so
right.
Now you already are into May. You already missed the biggest part of your season, and it's March, April, and it's when deer are coming off the winter, when they don't have food sources. They need to get nutritional value built back up, especially in bucks with antlers with protein. Okay, but not only that, it goes back down to does who are putting on a bag to feed their fawns that are internally inside of them, and that's where mineral plays such a big part in the system, in the ecosystem of a deer. The whole thing of it is because it all comes back around nutrition. So it also, with the mineral, this is where they coincide with each other, Brandon. And I was talking with Scott about this, and he's like, you are so spot on. You want your deer, whatever they're eating with the mineral, our mineral is based up upon basically on an annual annual amount of intake of about a 200-pound deer, which is a pretty big deer, mind you. But still, this is how it's set up, that they can digest it, they can intake it, they can digest it, and what they're digesting with the mineral, they will, whatever they're eating into an exceptionally a good source of protein for them. Okay, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do with that is one main system. I want them to eat the mineral along with the greens, the clovers, and the alfalfas that are coming back as soon as we get our spring thaws. Okay, so as soon as it starts to green up, you're giving them a protein right off the get-go. Okay, now our mineral is formulated with a probiotic, so everything they take in, they can process it to as much as over 80% efficiency. So we've noticed in a lot of our deer in the wild, a lot of our fawn bucks already will have 1-2 inch spikes on them, and which is very rare. I'm noticing this through, and I'm only doing this via customer base. On a deer farm in a pen, we notice it all the time, but that isn't fair because that's a different genetic makeup.
Right.
But we're noticing it a lot in the wild. The only thing that I tell people about our mineral, and it is what it is I say it grows junk because it provides so much nutritional value. And what I mean by junk is you will have some of the most unique characteristics if the deer eat enough of it. And what I mean by that, I mean double brows, fork twos, fork threes, drop tines. Last year we had customers that shot 17 pointers, 16 pointers, 14 pointers on their own property. But here's the thing with the mineral, and I'm just going to be straight up front. You ain't going to change your deer by feeding them, 5 pounds of it. Okay?
Yeah,
they need to really take it in. And I tell everybody this, and I mean this wholeheartedly, put your price on a booner. What is a booner worth to you? And I get into this debate with people all the time because, I want to grow a booner, but I don't invest any money in it. Well, you know what? Your chances of are honestly not very good. Not very good. If you put the effort into it, and I'm noticing it on our customer base who are coming back now, and they're like, wow, look at what I shot. And I was telling Scott this too a little bit. A lot of our customers are not on social media. They're not on. They don't even want. I can't even post their pictures. They don't even want me to. And you know what? I totally respect in the world we live today because of basically the violations or leases, all of these things kind of fit apart. So a lot of our customers, they tell me, Doug, I'll send you a picture, but don't you dare share it with anybody, and I don't. So last year we had over 60 booners shot off of our products that I know of. that I know of, which is astronomical, in my opinion. And I don't really care. I tell people that, and they're like, "Oh, you're lying. I want to see proof." And I'm like, I don't even have to, because it really doesn't matter. Our sales are proof for me. I'm not in this game to sit there and look at me or pat on my back or I'm better than them. I don't really care. I know as a business owner, you're supposed to care about your competition. That's not what drives me. What drives me is happy customers and trying to keep them happy and trying to educate them, to explain to them, this is what you need to do, this is how it needs to be done, this is what works the best. All of these things, that's what I do, and that's where it kind of grows for me as a company. So,
hey, Doug, do you have like a guideline as far as like the mineral goes? And I get what you're saying. It costs money to manage deer, to grow big deer, which it really does. But do you have a guideline to kind of say like, you should run 10 to 20 pounds of mineral a month if you have 50 acres, or do you go by size of acreage, or do you go by deer herd, quantity?
Both. I go by both. Usually what I do is I'll set up a mineral site, usually near a bedding area and a water site. Somewhere in between, I will usually put about 25 pounds per site on a stump, and I'll put a camera on it. Now, I will monitor it. Now, here's one thing about our mineral that's a little bit unique. It's very low in salt, okay? So, deer love salt, but salt and mammals, they don't go together, and we know that. Too much salt is no good, no, even for us. High blood pressure, lethargic, weight gain, bloated. So it's got just the right amount of salt in it that will be an attractant. But here's what I found out with the deer. They'll only eat it, like our mineral, they will only eat it as they need it. If they don't need it, they won't eat it. I put some things in it that will actually lower their blood temperature back to less stress. But getting back to your question, I will put usually 2 sites per 40, and I will monitor it. If they're going to eat it, if they eat it, they need it. And they will only eat it until their body levels off. And it's like I get this all the time. In the springtime, they just devour it because they're coming off of a hard winter. They need, because we get our minerals from what we eat. Deer are no different. Okay, in the winter, what do deer have other than frozen dead foliage? That's all they have. So you lose your nutritional values. Like, we get our minerals and vitamins out of what we eat, whether it be, vegetables or meats or fish or whatever it is. We take our vitamins through what we eat. Deer do not have that luxury. So back to keeping them healthy, I will put 2 sites per 40, and I'll monitor it. If it's gone, put more. There's nothing to it. But as the summer goes, they will level off. And you get into usually August, when the antlers kind of quit growing, they will really cut down. The does will be on it more so because they're still feeding their fawns. And fawns, when the fawns are taking milk out of the does, which one thing that's nice about the mineral is it goes into the doe, it goes into their milk. So it goes right into the fawn. So it's a win-win situation. So, but that's how I have it set up. I watch that, and I'll put it. I don't necessarily hunt over a mineral site. That's not what even food plots. Some people hunt over food plots, some people don't. I don't. That's your preference. I can get into the minute to that managing your property. You do what makes you comfortable. Setting up a property with a homeless animal. We talked to Scott about that. Winds, prevailing winds, easy in, easy out. These all things play. I'm into ground nutrition.
Hey, Doug, sorry to interrupt you. You're cutting out kind of bad.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. Sorry, is that better?
Yep, there we go. So, continue. Sorry.
I apologize. So, for me, it's all about back to, deer nutrition. So, when I was talking with Scott, it's all going to be about, your soil testing, finding out where your pH is at. And if you go to hornybuckseed.com, you can click on the blue soil icon. There's a little icon there. You can click on that, fill out that, your home address and how many kits you need, and they'll mail them to you. It's $18 when you mail them in, but it's free to mail them in, and it's $18 per sample, and it'll tell you exactly what your pH is at, because your plants are going to be only as good as your pH is going to be on the ground. So this all plays a huge part in because I tell people this because I'm a farmer, but I tell people this: the minute you think you're going to put in a food plot, you automatically became a farmer. There ain't no way around it. You are a farmer now, and there's good farmers and bad farmers, and it's easy to do it. I should say it's easy to do it right. It's just as easy to do it right as it is to do it wrong. And you know what? We still care. It's all around Mother Nature. So these all are contributing factors, Brandon, and it's all about educating. I take the time with the customer. Hey, listen, pH test. What's that? I should write a book on calls I get because, and I'm not saying they're stupid calls. I don't ever want it to belittle anybody because if a person doesn't know, ask. That's where I get frustrated. It's the ones who, I know that, and they're doing it wrong, and they're failing because they don't want to ask or think they're going to look dumb. And listen, if you don't know, ask, educate yourself, figure it out, or have somebody help you to figure it out. Because if you're sticking all your time and effort into a losing battle, make it a winning battle. That's why I kind of try to come in and try to help people.
Yeah, I agree. You have to ask questions, and you have to get the knowledge from people that know it. So if you don't ask, you can't ever, get out of the food plot what the goal is. You can't, get it to grow right. You can't set it up the right way. I mean, there's, like you said, becoming a farmer, there's a lot of questions to be had when you're trying to dig dirt and plant seeds and correlate all that stuff to, come up with a system to kill deer on. So, that's one of the reasons we do these podcasts, to get questions out there and get them answered.
Absolutely. See, I love helping people. So, I get a lot of people that text me, hey, I got a question. And sometimes, it's hard to answer via a text. So sometimes I got to call them and sit there and say, okay, what are you up against? What are you doing? How are you doing this? And then I can kind of point them in a direction. I would, and this is what I tell everybody. I'm not going to sit there and say your way you're doing it is wrong or it's right. I'm just going to tell you this is how I do it and this is what works for me. And I'm not saying you got to do it my way. I'm just saying this is what works for me. And as I educate them, they're like, oh, man, I never thought of that. Oh, man, that would be easy. Oh, man. A lot of our blends that we have are minimal tillage. But here's the deal, people. You still need to do the proper channels. You still need to do a soil test. You still need to do a weed control. You still need to fertilize. These are things that, it's basic farming 101. And like I said, as a food plotter, you're a farmer now. So these are all educational things that people really have to look at, because I get a lot of customers who are like, you want me to put fertilizer down? Are you kidding? You know how expensive that is? Well, okay. I'll tell you right now, are you going to raise a baby on bottles of water? You keep them alive, but if there's no nutrition to it, he ain't going to grow. And this is kind of the aspect of it that people need to learn, so to speak.
No, you're right. Absolutely right. And, like you said, there's just so much that goes with it. If you don't, getting back to that, if you don't ask, you can't grow it, so to speak. And Doug, one thing I think that's really kind of interesting that you've started to hit on in the beginning, and I kind of just want to revisit it real quick, but is the difference between the quality seed like you're doing and some of the stuff we get in a bag or a feed mill. So if you could just real quick, do you mind elaborating on that just a little more depth?
Okay, this is what I know. Okay, and I'll share it like it is. The seed most of our seeds that we plant, and I don't care what company it is, very few seed companies grow their own seed. It's true fact. Most of it is grown by brokers or bought from brokers or grown by farms out in let's just say Indiana, Oregon, Canada, Dakotas. It's all where it's going to come down to moisture, germination. Seed is very hard to grow seed. Now, you can bring that seed throughout the United States and grow it, but could you grow it for a productive seed? Probably not. So my thing, what I have with my broker right now is I have a thing with them that I only want to buy 100% fresh seed, okay? Now, this is where it gets a little pricey, and I'm going to break this down the best I can without stepping on any toes. You know, a lot of these brokers will produce, let's say they have a really good bumper year of seed. And I'm just going to throw this out there. Let's just say, we're going to say it's rape, okay? Let's just say 1 year they just have an unbelievable amount of rape, okay? So their production's up, let's say 50%. So it's like, oh my God, we got so much of it. Well, you know, as a consumers, we can only use so much of it, which leaves, let's say 50%. So they double their production, so they're up 50%. So they got, you know, let's just say 25% left over. Well, you know what? Now it's a year off. You know, it's still good. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. But now all of a sudden, well, we get another bumper year. So now we got that stuff that was a year off. Now it's 2 years off. Well, now they're like, man, we just got to move this. So what they'll do is they'll broker it out to some of these bigger companies that will bag it into bigger bags, and they will provide it to the feed mills, okay? And the feed mills, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not picking on any of them. I'm just saying some feed mills and feed stores buy on price alone.
Sure.
They don't buy on quality. They buy on price alone. So the sales rep will come to them, hey, man, I can get you a killer deal on rape. Man, instead of you paying, you know, $2 a pound, I can get it for you for $1 a pound. And you, well, as a store, you're going to be like, whoa, cha-ching, I can make some serious coin off of that.
Right.
So you bring it in. Now, it might still be great. Like I said, I'm not saying it's not, but the law of averages, it depends on how it was stored, temperature, UV light, all of these things play a part. And you go buy it at the store because you can get it a little cheaper, or at the feed mill, whatever, a little cheaper than, you know, like our stuff, and you get it, and you know what? You might be very successful with it. But then all of a sudden you might go buy some more seed the next year from that same feed mill or store, and it don't grow worth a crap. See, this
Right.
is the problem where your quality is not versus the price of it. And that's just who we are. Every year I do not buy. They don't even ask me if I want stuff that's 2 years off anymore. They won't even ask me that. Because they know I'll tell them no. So I pay a little bit more for fresh, 100% fresh, great quality. But in the same token, if you're going through back to all of the effort of the land, like I said before, you know, spraying it, weed killing it, soil testing it, fertilizing it, tilling it, and planting it, you know, so let's just say our seed is, let's just say hypothetically, is $8 a bag more, okay? Let's just say that versus the feed mill or versus a big store brand or whatever. Okay, so let's just hold that for a minute. So it's going to cost you $8 an acre more. Let's just say hypothetically. So for $8, which is a value meal, you know, almost at McDonald's nowadays, the way it is.
True.
Wouldn't you rather have quality, or would you rather sit there and say, boy, oh boy, I saved $8. I hope all my efforts are not wasted. I'm always on the sure bet. That's why I don't gamble. I never did. I don't go to casinos. It's not me. If I'm going to invest my time and money in something, I want something that's going to pay me back. The worst thing you're going to have, is if all of a sudden nothing grows and you got all that effort into it. And the thing of it is what I'm learning from customers that do this is they talk themselves out of it's something they did wrong. That's what I run into. They're like, oh, man, maybe I planted it too deep, or maybe I put it in too thick, or maybe I didn't put it in thick enough, or, man, we didn't have any sun. We didn't have any rain. We had too much rain. We had too much sun. Whatever. So, and it was probably nothing that they did or nothing that God did. It was about the quality that they got. See, so as a seed company, I'm a little bit different. I don't coat my seed. I don't do no coatings. I don't believe in coating. Coating is great if you're going to be planting, alfalfa, maybe, and you're going to be putting it, year after year, maybe some blends where you have to worry about basically blights and things. But coating, to me, and this is just my opinion, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus because there's pros and cons to it, but coating, if you take a bag and you flip it around and it says inert matter and it's 30% and it's coated, so 30% of that bag is coating. Okay? Now, coating it's supposed to basically help that plant, fertilize that plant to germinate and to grow and to protect against various diseases. you know what? I've never ran into an issue yet. But coating to me costs me on an average of 8 to 10 cents per pound. Okay? So now do the math on that, Brandon. I'll think about this for a minute. So let's just say you buy a 4-pound bag of seed. Okay? Well, let's even it out. Let's do a 3-pound bag of seed. Okay? So you're going to buy a 3-pound bag of seed. 33% of that is inert matter or coating. Okay? So out of that 3-pound bag, 1 pound doesn't grow. Okay? And that's where customers are like, are you kidding me? I'm like, hey, I'm just telling you. Okay? So our biggest complaint that we've ever had is it comes in too thick. Well, it's because for all of these years, buying this seed and you were doubling it up because you couldn't get it to grow. And with our stuff, less is more. It needs space. It goes further, and it's about educating people how to plant it. So this all kind of plays the big circular round part of the seed industry. But I've learned a lot through a lot of these big companies, and I used to be that guy. I used to be the guy that would go to the store and buy brand name seed. Until then I started going to a feed mill and mixing my own. This is way back in the late 80s. And then I started realizing that, you know what, as a farmer, I know that I'm not doing it wrong. So where am I missing? And then I ran into a broker at my farm when he came to sell me some corn seed, and we started talking about seed, and I was telling him about, man, how frustrated I was. He goes, and that's when he educated me. And we're still friends today. And that's where I learned about seed. And then I understood the game of seed. And so, if anybody says it's not a game, they're lying, because it's a game. And there's a lot of great companies out there. I don't bash companies. I don't say they're terrible. That's not me. I know some of them. I don't even know how they're still in business, and the only reason they are is because of price point. That's it. And what I mean by that is, they're probably getting their seed for $1 a pound. They're selling a 4-pound bag for $18, and what do they got in it? They're making 80-90% on it. I told them I can see. I don't know. I don't get it, but I don't get into that. Like I said, I don't toot my horn, and I don't bash other companies. It's just not me. But I'm just educating people. This is what I have learned through the years. This is why we do what we do, and this is why I put these blends together. And it's paying off because customers are noticing it.
All right, Doug, and another thing that we got going on, which I think is really excited to be working with you, is we've built a relationship with you in Top 10%. I know actually last night on the Facebook page we announced a giveaway we're doing, so you guys can go over there. But I know, Doug, you were going to offer something extra as well, so if you want to touch into that, that'd be great.
Yeah, our web guy got a hold of me this morning, and I told him, I said that we were going to be working with you guys quite a bit about helping you set up your farms, and you guys are going to be using only our seed and mineral, which I thought was really cool. So he said maybe we could run a promo code for the people, your listeners, and your people that are on your pages. And this is the code. It's going to be capital T, capital O, capital P, capital T, capital E, capital N, the %, and then capital O, capital F, which basically means, you just punch that into a code when you go on our website, and you get 10% off of anything you order, which I think is pretty cool. We'll be running that here for, I think, at least 10 days, ironically. But I just, I'm always about giving back and helping people who help me. And that's just who I am. Our reputation kind of in the industry is that way. I like to have a great relationship with people. I'm very big into helping people, sometimes to a fault. But this industry is a pretty brutal industry, and I'm not perfect by no means. I never said I was. But I try to do the best I can and I'm all about helping people. So I just figured this is one way I can help you guys to help, your guys that want to order and want to get into getting their properties switched around. And we can kind of go from there. And we're also working on some deer feed things, which I was talking with Scott about. We're going to be having a protein pellet that's going to be basically a 38% protein pellet infused with our Booner Max mineral. So I'm very excited about that because I think that's going to help those who are really into nutritional value for their deer that can't put food plots in, because not everybody can food plot. and I
Yeah, that's right.
respect that. I
Yeah.
get it. I
I was
understand.
excited to hear about that deer pellet, to be honest. Pretty excited. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought, and I just felt that, you know what, as a nutritional value for the deer, you always want them to have the most nutrition as possible, as you possibly can. So we created a protein, apple-flavored protein pellet with our Booner Max Mineral incorporated right into it. So it'll help them out nutritionally also. So, because back to what I just said, I said not everybody can food plot. I mean, I got guys that, they got small tracts of land or they don't have equipment at all, and they want to hunt over a bait pile. See, here's the problem with the industry today, or everybody's judgmental. Everybody judges everybody else because they don't do it that way. And I'm even getting better at open mind. Hey, listen, I don't care how you hunt. I'm not, who am I to judge you? The social media world today it's a lot of times it gets very frustrating because as hunters, we should stick together. Not let a kid who shoots a 2.5-year-old, somebody go on there and slam, oh, let that deer go another year. What's wrong with your dad? I'm like, really, dude? Really? You're going to lower self-esteem?
There's good and bad. Absolutely right. Yes,
right.
there is.
And
it seems that we see a lot more bad than the good, sadly. But yes, I agree with you. We got to, use that as a platform to stick together and be united and go from there.
Right, exactly. I mean, we're not out here trying to cure cancer, people. We're out here trying to grow deer and enjoy the wildlife that God gave us.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, you're right. Well said.
So.
Well,
whatever.
Doug, give us that code one more time, and then let us know where we can find you, website and social media-wise.
Okay, it's going to be, here's the code. It's all capitals, TOPTEN, and it's going to be the %, then capital O, capital F, capital F. We are on Facebook, on Horny Buck Seed, on Facebook, and we're also on hornybuckseed.com. You can find us there. And, if you have any questions, you can always question us, any questions, and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. It is getting what we call silly season for us. So, we try to answer the best you can, the best we can, I should say. But like I said, I'm big into customer service, and I want you to do it right. So if you have any questions, I don't care how dumb you think they are, you can always just message us or email us or text us, and we will answer them 100% the best that we possibly can.
That's awesome. Well, Doug, I mean, this is the first time in a long time. I had some technical difficulties today, so thanks for hanging out and sticking with me, and excited to get this show out, and we'll definitely do it again someday down the road.
Absolutely. I'd love to do part 2s. That's always great because then we come back with more questions. It's awesome.
Exactly. And we'll do it soon, hopefully, but appreciate your time today. Looking forward to the relationship with us in top 10%, and I'm excited to use some of the products and hopefully add to that list of Booner numbers you got going on.
Oh, I would love it. I love it. There's nothing better than getting a little, I tell you what, nothing more rewarding than sitting in your stand. Like I sit in a stand in the fall and people just blowing up my phone with deer they shot off of our stuff.
Well,
I don't even have to hunt, it feels like, because I just feel like I'm a winner.
That is cool.
It's a humbling experience, trust me.
Yeah, I bet it is. Well, thanks again, Doug, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you check us out every week, Outdoor Podcast channel, podbros.com, and on iTunes. And Doug, we'll be talking real soon. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great rest of the day.
All right, you too, Doug. Bye-bye.